Oliver was 11 years old when he realized he had stopped living. Not in the dramatic sense. His heart still beat, his lungs still filled with air. But somewhere along the way, he had built an invisible cage around himself, and he had thrown away the key. This is the story of how a single question set him free. Every morning, Oliver walked to school with his head down. Not because he was sad, but because looking down meant not making eye contact. Not making eye contact meant no conversations. No conversations meant no chances to say something stupid. This was his logic. This was his survival strategy. In class, Oliver knew answers. He knew them often. But his hand stayed glued to his desk like it was made of concrete. What if he was wrong? What if everyone laughed? What if the teacher gave him that look? The one that said he should have known better. So he stayed silent, safe, small. His classmates joined clubs. They auditioned for plays. They raised their hands and got things wrong and somehow survived. Oliver watched them like a scientist observing a different species. How did they do it? How did they risk embarrassment so casually? He couldn't understand it, and he couldn't join them. Here's what nobody tells you about fear. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock on your door and say, "Hello, I'm here to ruin your life." It moves in quietly, like a roommate who never pays rent. It whispers reasonable things. Better to be careful. You're not ready yet. Maybe next time. And before you know it, next time becomes never. Oliver's fear had been whispering to him for years. It started small, the way these things always do. A spelling bee in 3rd grade where he froze. A birthday party where he said something awkward and heard kids laughing afterward. A soccer tryout where he missed an easy goal. Each moment left a mark. Each mark became a rule. Don't try new things. Don't speak up. Don't let anyone see you fail. By 11, Oliver had so many rules that he had forgotten what freedom felt like. The library was Oliver's sanctuary. Books didn't judge. Stories didn't laugh at you. Between the shelves, he could be anyone, anywhere, doing anything, without any risk at all. One rainy Thursday, he was reaching for a book on the top shelf when a voice startled him. "That's a good one. About a boy who sails across the ocean alone." Oliver turned. An elderly woman stood behind the desk, white hair pulled back, glasses perched on her nose, eyes sharp and kind at the same time. "I couldn't do that," Oliver said without thinking. "Sail across the ocean, I mean." "Why not?" "I'd be too scared." The librarian smiled. Not a pitying smile, something deeper. "Fear is interesting, isn't it? It feels like it's protecting us, but most of the time it's just keeping us stuck." Oliver didn't know what to say. Adults usually told him fear was normal, that everyone felt it, that he'd grow out of it. They didn't talk about it like this, like it was something worth examining. "Can I ask you something?" the librarian said. Oliver nodded. She leaned forward slightly. "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" The question hit Oliver like a wave, not because it was complicated, because it was simple. So simple that he had never thought to ask it. What would he do if fear wasn't a factor? If embarrassment didn't exist? If failure was just information? He would raise his hand in class. He would try out for the art club, even though his drawings weren't perfect. He would talk to Marcus, the kid who sat alone at lunch, who seemed interesting but unapproachable. He would sign up for the school talent show, not to win, but just to see what it felt like to stand on a stage. He would live, actually live, instead of watching life happen from the sidelines. "I don't know," he told the librarian. But they both knew he was lying. She just smiled and handed him the book about the boy who sailed alone. That night, Oliver couldn't sleep. The question kept circling in his mind like a song stuck on repeat. What would you do if you weren't afraid? He grabbed a notebook and started writing. Not a story, a list. Everything he had avoided, everything he had wanted but talked himself out of. The list filled one page, then two, then three. Looking at it made his stomach hurt. So much unlived life, so many doors he had never even knocked on. But here's the thing about awareness. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. Oliver couldn't go back to pretending his cage was comfortable. The bars were too visible now, so he made a decision. Small, almost insignificant. He would raise his hand once, just once, the next day in class. Whatever the question was, he would raise his hand. The next morning, his heart pounded so hard he could hear it. Mrs. Patterson asked about the capital of Peru. Oliver knew it. Lima. His hand trembled at his side. What would you do if you weren't afraid? He raised his hand. Mrs. Patterson called on him. He said, "Lima." She said, "Correct." That was it. No applause. No dramatic music. Just a small moment that changed everything. Because Oliver learned something crucial. The fear didn't disappear before he acted. He acted while the fear was still there, and he survived. The fear had lied to him. It said he couldn't handle it, but he could. Over the following weeks, Oliver kept asking himself the question. Before every decision, every opportunity, every moment where the old rules tried to kick in. He joined the art club. His first drawing was terrible. Nobody cared. He talked to Marcus. Turns out Marcus loved the same books. They became friends. He signed up for the talent show. He told jokes. Some landed, some didn't. People clapped anyway. Each time, the fear showed up. Each time, Oliver acknowledged it and moved forward anyway. And each time, the fear got a little quieter. Psychologists call this exposure therapy. When you face what scares you repeatedly, your brain learns that the threat isn't real. The alarm system recalibrates. What once felt terrifying becomes manageable, then normal, then boring. But Oliver didn't know the science. He just knew that the question had given him a key. Not to eliminate fear, but to stop letting it make his decisions. A month later, Oliver returned to the library. The same librarian was there, shelving books. "You look different," she said. "I feel different." What changed? Oliver thought about it. "I stopped waiting to not be afraid. I started doing things while I was still scared." The librarian nodded slowly. "That's the secret, isn't it? Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the presence of fear." Oliver still feels afraid sometimes. That never fully goes away. But now he knows something he didn't before. Fear is just a feeling. It's not a fortune teller. It doesn't know what's going to happen. It only knows what might happen, and it always assumes the worst. The question changed his life. Not because it was magic, because it forced him to separate who he was from what he was afraid of. And in that space, in that tiny gap between fear and action, Oliver found himself. So here's my question for you. The same one that old librarian asked. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Don't answer me. Answer yourself. Write it down. Look at it. And then ask yourself what's really stopping you. Because I promise you this, the cage door was never locked. You just thought it was. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment telling me one thing you'd do if fear wasn't a factor. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.